Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Just getting set up here. Apologies for being a minute late. Johnny, welcome. Going to bring you up. Dr. Tachi is here with me on the live stream. Dr. Tachi, go ahead and join the clubhouse room if you could. Should be up and running for you. And we'll get things going. There we go. Dr. Tachi up on stage with me, please. All right. So here we go. We are in not the smartest people in the room this week with myself. Dr. Tachi is helping me out, co-hosting. How you doing this morning, Dr. Tachi? Oh, you're on mute. Still muted on Clubhouse. I can't hear you. There you are.
I'm fantastical. How are you?
I'm doing great. Everybody be patient. We're ironing out the kinks. This is the first time in a long. Dom and I kind of we have a bit of an unspoken, there's an unspoken dialogue between us because we do this so much. But we're just ironing out the kinks. So everybody be patient with us. We appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to go ahead and start pinging some folks into the room. This is Not the Smartest Guys, aka Not the Smartest People in the Room this week. We talk all things publishing, podcasting, brand building, storytelling, you name it. We talk about it when it comes to media. I am Tom, and I'm here with Dr. Tachi. Dom is on family vacation this week, so he couldn't be with us. But I'm here with Dr. Tachi. We're going to try to do our best to run the room well. I'm going to be kind of filling my normal role and Dom's role a little bit, playing moderator and bringing people up on stage and all that good stuff. And I'm super, super excited and happy to have Dr. Tachi here with me. We didn't have a chance to kind of prep beforehand, which is normally something that Dom and I usually have like a 2-minute conversation to kind of hone in on some topics we want to talk about. We didn't have a chance to do that. So let's just do it live. Right?
Let's do it live, please. Do it. Yeah.
So what's salient for you today, Dr. Tachi? What's on your mind? What do you got going on?
What's salient for me is that I have no air condition, but nobody cares about that. Well, honestly, there's a lot going on. I know you've been paying attention. It caused me to think, okay, so Barbie and Oppenheimer. Have you seen either one? Has anybody seen either one?
I haven't seen either one. Johnny says Dr. Tachi is barely audible.
Audible. Okay.
You sound fine to me on my side. I don't know. Is anybody else having trouble hearing Dr. Tachi?
Let me know, and I'll beef it up a little bit if I need to.
Yeah, it sounds like she's in a tin can on the other side of the room.
Interesting. I also like the autocorrect. It says Dr. Tachometer on my side here. And
I hate autocorrect. I hate AI.
That's hilarious. John says she's fine on his end. So it may be, Johnny, it may be something to do with your connection. So we'll keep an eye on it. So who's seen? I haven't seen either Barbie or Oppenheimer, although I know some friends of ours did Barbenheimer the other day. Has anybody done that? Has anybody experienced the Barbenheimer?
I have gone to see Barbie, and I have not seen Oppenheimer yet. But the smash success, and Dr. Tachi, I'm sure you're wondering about this too, is how did this happen? How did these become the two biggest movies, not just of 2023, but the fourth biggest weekend movie opening in movie history? And how did they capture that lightning in a bottle? And what does that mean for us as other creators?
Absolutely, that's exactly what I was thinking about. If anybody wants my answer, this is what I think. Now, not that these two movies were not good. I've heard really great things about the Barbie movie, surprisingly, and I've heard really great things about Oppenheimer as well. Barbie was 155 million, which is record breaking. Oppenheimer was so here's what I think that the actual black choice, not that the movie good. But look, peanuts taste like steak if that's all you have. And no shade to the movies, no shade to the directors, no shade to the actors. It's just that I don't know that these movies, a period piece and then a movie about a toy doll, would have been the two biggest juggernauts this summer if we had other choices. And that also leads to what we're talking about. What does this now mean for creators like us? What does this mean for the rest of the industry? There's already something groundbreaking happening in the fact that in 66 years we haven't had a strike by both the Writers Guild and the SAG-AFTRA, right? The acting guild, and other people like the Teamsters, IATSE are also supportive. So to me, this means a change in the tide. But does it mean a change in the tide of more movies like Oppenheimer and Barbie? That's what I'm wondering. Tom or whoever.
Well, I find it interesting, and for everyone listening, this is Johnny. I find it interesting that you have perceived that there are no other choices when there are dozens of other movies in the theaters. However, I think the opposite might be true. I think that Oppenheimer and Barbie are the steak and potatoes in a market filled with peanuts and cotton candy. And I'll tell you, I went and saw Barbie. I was expecting it to be ridiculous, and it was. But then it would be utterly ridiculous, and then it would take a left turn and smack you in the face with the most profound social commentary that just left you in shock that it was so deep and so profound and so layered. And so I think the opposite is true, that we get two truly original movies. Barbie is totally original. There's never been anything like it. It was fantastic. And Oppenheimer is a story that hasn't really been told at the level and at the caliber that they are telling it. And in a summer of, sequels, Transformers, Indiana Jones, Little Mermaid, another Mission Impossible. We've been there, done. It feels like we've been there, done that. Got the T-shirt, and golly, here's something fresh, new, and it captured the imagination of social media with the contrast and the dichotomy, and calling it Barbenheimer. Social media is what made this happen, and I think there's some important lessons for us as creators to learn from the phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to take a point you made there, Johnny, and run with it a little bit. I think that there is something to be said for the idea of the novelty of at least Barbie, for sure. I've heard much more about that. I haven't seen, still going to, put it out there. I haven't seen either one. So I can't really speak to their merits or lack thereof, whatever the case may be. But I've heard a lot about how novel and surprising the Barbie movie is. And a lot of people that I know who I think have educated opinions on content and media are saying it's worth going to see. And so with that in mind, I think what you talked about, where you kind of hit on a little bit with the summer of sequels, right, is that, there is a ton of opportunity to there's a ton of opportunity to really do something novel and break away from sort of this studio standard, right? Which is take an existing property that they know will make money, a sure bet, so to speak, right? And just keep churning it out until it stops making money, and then go on to the next property that they know, the next sure bet, right? And so that's what they're doing with the Indiana Jones. That's what they're doing with Transformers. That's what they do with all these sequels that we're seeing, right? It's go to an existing property, something that is some IP that has already generated income, that they are confident they will generate income and a return for their investors on, and then go generate that income and that return for investors. And what's interesting is I think there's a ton of opportunity in eschewing that mold and doing something like Barbie. And I think even to some extent, this social media phenomenon that you talked about, Johnny, is indicative of that. This idea that you should go see Barbie and Oppenheimer, right, as a double feature, these two incredibly disparate films, right, that you should combine them as a double feature, I think is really interesting, but B, indicative of this desire for novelty in the viewing public, right? Like people are going to suck up rehashings, if you will, right? If that's all they have, which is a lot of what we've had with like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and you hear people on and the Star Wars, the reemergence of like all these Star Wars productions and things, right? And you hear people talking about, kind of like denigrating both of those properties because they are these rehashings. They're sort of clumsily done. They're not necessarily well thought out. They're, may not strictly adhere to canon. They're departures from the sort of worlds that have been constructed in the original properties, comic books, fiction, novels, et cetera, et cetera. So you end up with people watching it because there's not really anything else to watch that they really like or that falls into their wheelhouse, or because it's there, right? But when you give them a novel choice, a lot of people are jumping for something new and different and exciting. And I think Barbenheimer kind of scratches that itch, and it hints towards some of the opportunity that I was talking about last week, talking about like sort of big businesses doing an end run around the studios and investing in independent productions that are working with SAG-AFTRA and the WGA, right, to pay fair wages and to guarantee residuals, et cetera, et cetera. Do an end run around the studios and create some novel content. There is a huge audience for it. I think the Barbenheimer phenomena confirms that, right? That there's an audience for this novel approach to content making and distribution and production. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a market. What do you think, Dr. Tachi?
I definitely think there's a market for it. Absolutely. It's just what I was saying before in terms of there not being choice. There are other movies, but let's not forget we're still coming off of a pandemic, which is still not really over, but it's subsided quite a bit. So because of that, that slowed production down. So there's no the amount of big movies of the summer or movies of the summer that we would have under normal circumstances, right? So what we find is the industry still trying to play catch up to get to this point. And you can't do that, in 3 years. It takes some time. So I think that's what we're seeing. So not that the movies are not good, and not that there's not space in the space for it. There certainly is. I just think we don't have, I shouldn't say we lack choice. We don't have as much choice as we normally do. But Tom, yeah, absolutely. I think this method, this approach to movie making, to marketing, first of all, give that whoever the marketing people were for Barbie, give them $1 million or more extra on top of what they got, because it was brilliant. If you look at the marketing juggernaut that this thing is, even if excuse me, even if the movie is terrible, right? The fact that they got out there and they are in front of everything. Look at all the clothing collabs that they've done with this, the makeup collabs, I watch a lot of YouTube. So I'm watching even house, what are they called? Interior designers looking at how you can incorporate pink without it being too juvenile. So this is a huge thing that is being talked about across the board. Maybe not in surgery, but across the board. And so they've been able to do that. So I think in terms of that we're going to see more people trying to, or more filmmakers trying to do collabs across the board with things like this. The last time I saw a really big clothing collab like this was when the television show Scandal was on, and Olivia Pope was the big thing. All you saw in showrooms and in show windows across New York, etc., was the white or the black when she was playing the villain, and very Olivia Pope-ish. So I think a lot of filmmakers, if it fits, will do more tie-ins with fashion, more tie-ins with food. And that doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. More tie-ins with social media. I think now people are starting to take it seriously, that social media and all of these collabs, especially with influencers, can really make a film. That's what I think.
Go ahead, Johnny.
So that's all good, and I'm gonna take issue with one thing though. I'm gonna disagree with you that this has been a summer of fewer films. I think it's been bloated. I go to the movies regularly. That is our hobby and our family. That's our activity, and all summer we've had to choose which movie we're going to see over another one. And it's been bloated this summer with full releases, more so than any other summer that I remember in the last decade. So I just disagree with you about choices. However, here's the dangerous thing that Barbie is going to.
Oh, we lost you in the void there,
Yeah,
John.
no, I had a call trying to come in. The success of Barbie has lit Mattel on fire, and now they think that they can go make a movie about every IP in their toy lines. And we're going to see a glut of those kind of movies. And the producers, the studios aren't going to understand. Mattel isn't going to understand why Barbie is socially significant and important. They're just going to crank out something that has some kind of aesthetics. They're going to use AI to generate similar scripts, and we're going to be inundated by low quality, look-alike, Johnny come lately cash grab efforts.
I mean, I think you're right to a point, Johnny. I mean, I don't know about I don't think it's so much a lack of choice. I think the fact that like Barbie is and Gavin mentioned this in the comments, but obviously Barbie is a huge property, right? It's the IP has a huge following in and of itself already. It had a built-in audience, right? So 100% agree there. But I think the novel approach to how the film was made, right? From what I understand, again, I have not seen it, but from what I understand, the novel approach to how the film was made is really sort of the key differentiator there. And I think that's what has made this movie sort of as successful as it's been. And I think, Johnny, you're 100% right. I think the bean counters are going to misinterpret that. And they're going to say, well, it's just because it's Barbie and not because how the story was told or how the movie was made, and not give credit to sort of the artistic or creative direction that was taken. And ultimately what they're going to end up doing is they're going to try to replicate the formula. But the formula was sort of novel and creative, and they're going to try to turn that into a process they can rinse and repeat. And they're probably going to ruin the the franchise in the process, right? When it comes to a film franchise based on Barbie, right, on the character, or on their other properties. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think they're probably gonna go down a bad path with it. Right?
I mean, that's business though, isn't it? There's Cheerios, Honey Nut Cheerios, chocolate Cheerios, Cheerios with marshmallows, Cheerios this and that. Like that's just the thing. It's just try to keep putting a shot in the arm of the business model until the well dries up. And like I was saying in the comments, there have been Barbie animated movies and TV series for years. This is just the first live action Barbie. So it's not an original movie, like Oppenheimer or other things. Even Oppenheimer's, based on a true story. Yes, it's an original film, but like there's that movie, The Creator, coming out, that Gareth Edwards, who did Rogue One and Monsters back in the day. That is an original sci-fi movie coming out in September. And I was just in the theater watching the trailer being like, when's the last time we got like an original blockbuster where they spent $80 million on something that's like a fresh script that isn't IP driven and everything? But yeah, everything that's being said here is, but yeah, there will be cheap knockoffs, of course. Blair Witch comes out and there's a million movies with a camcorder. It doesn't mean they're good. It's just people trying to make a quick buck, trying to like get enough money, make something for a low cost and make enough money off of it that there's a profit. Like that's the problem with it being the film business versus the the art collective of making high art.
I mean, I agree with you, Gavin. I think the point that I was trying to make, right, is yes, like the IP, right, making a film about Barbie is not novel, right? But at the end of the day, when it comes to innovation is not about creating something brand new out of whole cloth, right? Innovation is about the novel combination of existing things, right? So like even, it's sci-fi, the sci-fi property you're talking about, which I'm not familiar with, I guarantee when you watch it, there are going to be echoes of things you're already familiar with, right? Because again, it's not 100% brand new, right? And that's good. You have to include things that people are familiar with. It's those things that people can identify, that resonate with them, that create enjoyment for the audience, right? So like, you have to give them some stuff they're familiar with. It can't just be all new all the time. Besides the fact that it doesn't really exist anyway, right? There is kind of nothing brand new, right, anymore. And I think there probably hasn't been for a very, very long time. There are little pieces that are brand new, but nothing in its entirety is brand new, right? But I think, like, from what I've heard, the approach to telling Barbie, to creating that film was new. Getting smacked in the face with social commentary and things like that, things that are unexpected in a film that on its surface looks like it's just going to be a fluff piece, I think is really where they sort of took it in a new direction. And I think when you're talking about, like, isn't that just business when you're talking about Cheerios, Honey Nut Cheerios, whatever, apple cinnamon Cheerios, whatever the case may be. Yes, it is just business, but this is also the sort of thing you run into with creative work and business, and where they sort of collide and butt heads, right? Like, when you're talking about products like Cheerios, it's a very different animal than talking about creative properties, right? And storytelling and filmmaking and things like that. So yeah, I just think, I don't know, it's a novel thing, but I think we should actually move along. We've got a bunch of people up on stage here with us, and I want to hear from some of the folks whose opinions I respect and people I enjoy seeing here every week. So, John Jay, have you seen Barbenheimer? And if not, let us know what's on your mind, and drop a tip, ask a question, whatever you got for us. The floor is yours.
I have not seen Barbie, and to be totally honest with you, it has no appeal to me whatsoever. None. Zero. Zip. Zilch. Oppenheimer, I'm more into that because I like Cillian Murphy, and I do like the timepieces that take me out of the reality of what's going on today. So I do like that. I think they picked a bad name. They probably should have thought of a different name. However, my wife and I are going to see the movie Sound of Freedom this Saturday because it does appeal to me. And the reason it appeals to me is because so many people are anti that film. So I want to go see what it is. And to be totally honest with you, we don't go to the movies very often anymore because we found it is a total waste of money. It's a total waste of money. It's $25 or more for two of us to get in there before we even get something to eat. You drop $50 in there and you see something that's a rehash of an old Shakespeare theme that's been done 15 times before. The only difference is it's marketed differently. So I'm a lot more selective about what goes. What appeals to me, number one, time period pieces that are not in a time, and number two, to be totally honest, ones that don't go into social content of what they think I need to know what's important today. I want to go to movies to escape, so that's what I go for, and we don't do it very often. But that's my short on it. So for me, originality has huge appeal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Tom, can we do a station ID before we continue on?
Is that yeah, the where we are, what we station?
Yeah.
look at you from your, bringing your radio broadcasting over. I'm sure John Jay was like, oh yeah, station ID. This is absolutely. Let's do that. So this is not the smartest guys / people in the room this week. My name's Tom. I'm here with Dr. Tachi. She's co-hosting and standing in for Dom. We talk all things publishing, podcasting, social media, all things media related. And we're here for, to answer your questions, share tips. We love all the brilliant people we bring into the room every week with us. And we're here for you guys. So, ask a question, share a tip. If you want to come up on stage, I've invited pretty much everybody who's here, I think, up on stage at this point. So if you want to come up on stage, come on up. We just ask that you wait until if you want to interject, that's fine. Flash, we'll come to you. Otherwise, we just ask for you to wait for us to get to you. We'll get to you in the order that you guys came up on stage. And that's pretty much how it works. Dr. Tachi, anything I missed?
No, that was a beautiful station ID. Thanks so much, Tom.
My pleasure. That's, I guess, my first official station ID. But because it took me forever too. Like, I mean, for those, I mean, Dr. Tachi's been hanging out with us on Wednesday mornings for a long time at this point. But for a long time, it took forever for Dom and I even to refer to this as a quote show, because for a long time it was just hanging out and chatting and talking about whatever came up and whatever we were thinking about, sort of like we're doing today, talking about this whole Barbieheimer phenomena. So and trying to get to the bottom of what exactly is driving its success. But yeah, anyway, we talk about all kinds of stuff. So I think we'll keep moving. If that sounds good to you, Dr. Tachi, we'll keep it moving. We'll go to Kevin, who's
Yes.
next up on my list. Kevin, what do you got for us today?
Okay, well, first of all, any stage that Tachi is on is going to be like a siren song to me and pull me into the room. So obviously I'm here for that. And as Tachi knows, we love to talk movies, film, TV, entertainment. So when I heard what the topic was, yeah, let's discuss. One of the things that's really shocked me is people's surprise at the success of the Barbie movie, which, okay, Barbie is one of the most recognizable IPs in the world. So then you have an all-star cast starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling. So it's stunning to me that people are stunned that people went to see a movie starring two hugely popular people based on an IP that everybody on the planet already knows. So this idea that this is something insanely novel is crazy to me. So there's that. And people were talking earlier about the whole thing about sequel and sequel fatigue. I feel like you can have a franchise, a property can have tremendous goodwill, but that goodwill can be spent. And we've seen that done. The first Star Wars movie of the prequels that came out a few years ago was a juggernaut. far surpassed even in if you basically adjust for inflation. uh The Force Awakens was one of the most successful Star Wars movies ever. But when people saw that and then they saw the next one and they were getting worse, people stopped going. So I don't think that people are necessarily tired of sequels as an idea, but they're when you basically have goodwill, the same thing with Indiana Jones. The last Indiana Jones movie that came out before the current one, people came out in droves that first weekend. They were looking to see Indy ride off into the sunset for the very last time, and he was going to pass the torch. And then Shia LaBeouf kind of imploded, and so the torch passing didn't work out. People weren't happy with that movie. Aliens, Crystal Skulls. People weren't happy, and they waited too long to try and recover and put a bow on it, and people weren't ready to rush out to see an 80-year-old Harrison Ford be super depressed. That's not a shock. I don't understand why people thought that that was a good idea. The only way it would have been a good idea is if they were basically had done what he did, where the third movie in the franchise, in the original franchise, where his father was played by Tachi, help me, James Bond.
Sean Connery.
Sean Connery.
Yeah.
So basically, if Harrison Ford had played the Sean Connery role, and they had gotten a legit young movie star to basically be the next Indiana Jones, then that could have worked. But they didn't do that. Anyway, so my point is, you can burn through good IP. The same thing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What killed that off is the stupidity of Disney Plus. You have something that's an event. Marvel movies were an event. You have like one or two of them a year. They were an event. Then you put a bunch of shows on TV and you make homework for people. Oh, for it all, it's all goes together. So you need to watch all of this before you watch this. This won't make sense without watching this other stuff. And then they dug all these superheroes out of nowhere, and they just have all these movies cranking out. You basically stopped the thing from being special, and you got people, and not only was it too much content, but the content wasn't even good. So people got burned out. So I don't think that sequels are done. We're going to continue to have sequels. I also agree with the idea of what Johnny was saying. Yes, absolutely, there will be a Hot Wheels movie. There will be a Polly Pockets movie. Every IP that they own will become a movie. I'm surprised. The easiest one to me is like Magic 8 Ball, because that's an easy feel-good comedy about somebody whose life is like in the dumps and they don't trust their own judgment, and they pick up a Magic 8 Ball and they do what it says and their life starts to turn around. So that's a movie right there. So
you better have trademarked that idea, because that is genius.
Yeah, it's a Tiffany Haddish vehicle, if you ask me. But anyway, so yeah, that's my piece.
Or a good horror film where the Magic 8 Ball kills people. So that would be another one.
Well, they want to sell more at Magic 8 Balls, though. That would not sell them.
You're right.
But hey, Kevin is absolutely right. There is already a Hot Wheels movie in development, and the big one will be He-Man, a new He-Man movie. That's going to be what they're going to bank on.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Johnny. I agree with you, Kevin, definitely. I wanted to add something in there, if I may, Tom. I think that one thing that we have to remember also, for anybody who's ever pitched a show, and I think everybody here has to some extent, to anybody here who there we go. To anybody here who's ever pitched a show, anybody here who has thought about pitching, two major outlets, one thing you'll find is that Hollywood works with Hollywood, and they don't like to work with too many people outside of that. So there are millions of brilliant thousands of brilliant scripts from people that may not be insiders that we may never see on the quote big screen in a way that is exhibited for the masses to see, because Hollywood doesn't want to take a chance on people. And I understand why. They're risk adverse. But as such, then you get a whole lot of sequels, you get a whole lot of prequels, the same properties. Not that there is nothing to make of those, not that there is not still story left, but then that also doesn't leave room for new stories because they don't want to fund people that they don't know. So that's why I always tell people, if you can do it yourself some way, do it. Now, is it going to will it get wide distribution? Maybe not. But, and is there more work required of you because you're doing it yourself? Yes. But if you want to get your project made, if you're sitting and waiting for them to approach you or pitching them thinking, yeah, this is going to get made, it may not. And I'm not trying to rain on people's parades. It's just what is. So if we're seeing a reprise of the same type of things, in addition to what everybody else mentioned, it's also the fact that nobody wants to pay and take a chance on people they don't know. Tom?
100%. I mean, it's the same thing, and I think we've talked about it in here before. It's the same thing you see with the music industry as well, right? Labels are only interested in artists that they know will sell, right? In artists that they know will result in streams, and so they double and triple and quadruple down on artists that they know will sell, that they know will provide streams, that they know will generate revenue for them, and they don't take chances on something new, something different, something interesting, something needed, right? So yeah, 100%. I mean, it is again, I think it's indicative of the place where sort of traditional business and creativity collide, and it's it's one of those things. It's like when is it's that idea, right? It's that idea of if this is a good thing, then more of it is an even better thing, right? It's like, oh, like candy is great, and like candy's delicious. Like you get your favorite candy, you're gonna eat more and more and more of it until you get a tummy ache, right? And then you're gonna stop eating that candy, right? And it's the same kind of thing. Like basically, they're just giving us over and over and over again in terms of like the content that's produced, these movies that we're talking about, these overdoing it with these properties, with the Marvel properties, with the Star Wars properties, right? If it's a good thing, then more of it is a better thing, right? And just more and more and more of it, and they're giving us a sort of a stomach ache, so to speak, when it comes to this style of content. Kevin, what do you think?
Oh, I also wanted to chime in on something that John hinted at, and I feel like not enough people talk about, is the price of going to the movies. Definitely, it's one thing. I feel like the only people that would really go to the movies is if you're going on a date. But if you have a family and you're taking children, or you're just going by yourself, the turnaround from when things are in theaters to when they're available to stream is so short now. And so if you literally wait like a month or two, the movie that you're going to pay $20 to go see, you can see on a streaming service you're already currently paying for. And so I feel like
Transformers Rise of the Beast is available on streaming today.
I just saw that, yeah, and the new the latest remake of a Disney property, The Little Mermaid, I just saw that is available for pay-per-view now. And so that movie is still in theaters, and you can see it for a fraction of the cost on your giant TV in your living room right now. So that absolutely has to be eating into the market share of people going to a theater, putting pants on, paying for parking, paying for a babysitter if they have kids at home, or paying to take their kids to see something when they can basically watch it at home in a month. So I feel like that's absolutely eating into their revenue stream, and I don't understand why more of them aren't talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think I haven't been. I'm going to speak for myself. Somebody who's in production, who's in a creative industry. I'm not even sure the last time I went to a movie in a theater, right? I don't think I've been since the pandemic. So it's literally been years since I've gone to a theater and seen a movie. And I don't think I'm alone on that either, right? Like I would, in a lot of cases, I would much rather wait until it comes out on a streaming service that I already pay for, right? And all I got to do is watch a couple of movies, you know, watch 1 or 2 movies a month to make that streaming service worthwhile, because of the cost of a movie ticket, because a theater ticket, of the cost of going to the movie theater is so high, that it doesn't take a lot to make that, make that subscription worthwhile, make it quote unquote pay for itself by watching a movie that's still in theaters or just out of theaters, in the comfort of my own home. The other thing too, I was just going to say, going back to the He-Man idea, Johnny mentioned earlier, He-Man's next. Actually, Netflix just shelved production on a Masters of the Universe live action film that they were in process on. I saw an article about it the other day. I just pulled it up. They had spent about $30 million already. They had a $200 million budget that they were trying to pare down to 150 unsuccessfully. And so, yeah, they've shelved the project. They've halted production.
Well, that is correct. And you are right about Netflix pulling the plug on that. And a big part of that is because the movie got delayed as well because of the writers and actors strike. And so Netflix just decided to take the loss, take it off their taxes. But I guarantee you, Mattel is still hungry for the box office. See, and here's the thing that Kevin just mentioned. These movies go to streaming so quickly. When I was a kid, it would be 3 years before we would see a movie on home video or on television. I saw E.T. ran for 6 months. It was the #1 movie in America for 6 months in theaters. And when it left theaters, when was the last time you saw it? On television, 3 to 5 years later. It came out on video, on VHS, about 2 years after the initial release. And that's Bob Iger at Disney has realized that this is a problem that they've got to fix with the streaming services and the rush to streaming, preventing people from going to the box office because they don't make money on streaming releases. They're hemorrhaging money. Where they make money is at the box office, and they've got to get people back to the theater. And that's going to be one of the things you're going to see is a longer wait. And if I were those studio execs, I would say hold anything from streaming for 1 year to 2 years and keep those movies in the theaters longer, like Top Gun Maverick did. That movie was in the theaters for 9 months. Anyway, I'm Johnny. I'm done.
I think you're gonna see a lot of the first you're spoiled in America because you have the AMC A-list where you can pay $25 or $30 a month and see 12 movies a year. I miss living in Los Angeles. I live back in Canada right now. I'm on a long-term production here. I got to pay for every single movie ticket. I still go. I love the movies, but yeah, it is. Yeah, losing the video rental window in physical media, and then losing that to direct to streaming and VOD becoming even a smaller window is really. And during the pandemic, a lot of that shifted where the windows got shorter from theatrical to video, just as they were trying to get people to watch anything at home. But it sort of forever changed it. I don't even know how you go back because you've programmed. Same with Spotify and music. You've programmed the audience and the user to have everything they want for one price. So asking consumers to turn around and go back to an old model will be strange. I'll be curious to see how anyone pulls it off.
This is a great conversation. Thank y'all for having me here. I live in the music world, produced 2 podcasts for 2 country music recording artists. One's a big songwriter. He's had 9 #1s, 15 top 10s, and so when it comes to I don't know the movie world. I don't know how the movie world is going to continue to exist as we know it 5 or 10 years from now. And that's from 40,000 feet. The level to hone in on the publishing, songwriting world like Brad says, I mean, he's made a ton of money writing songs, and he had a Taylor Swift cut off the record she had that she reissued, she recut because of the big disagreement that she got in with Scott, I think it was with her label. He said his first quarter check, it was Taylor Swift and Keith Urban, and it was a reissue, so that she recut the song with Keith Urban. His first publishing check was $900. His first publishing check was $900. He's like, man, and so what they're going to start doing, at least in the publishing world and the songwriting world, what Brad says is that they're going to start cutting the songwriters in on the actual masters, get points on the masters, because you just can't make any money writing songs anymore. It just doesn't exist. He feels sorry for the young songwriters because you can't make money. That's just my 2 cents. Hopefully I stayed on topic with that.
No, you definitely did. And do we ever stay on topic here? That's all right. we run the gamut of topics, so this was great. It's great how you were able to connect the music industry to what happens in the movie, because essentially it's different, but in theory there's the same type of thing. Absolutely. So thank you for that story and that anecdote. And welcome, Matt. I think this is your first time here, and if okay,
thank you.
Welcome. It's so good to have you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Tom, can we hop over to Triple J, because I don't think we've heard from him today?
100%. I was just gonna. You read my mind. I was just gonna say we should talk to Triple J. Triple J, you've been in here before. It's not the smartest people in the room today. So let us know what's on your mind. Got a question? Got something you want to add to the topic? Drop a tip, whatever the case may be. The floor is yours, my friend.
Okay. Thank you, Tom, Dr. Tachi, and Johnny. I've been kind of MIA. I am at home recovering from a open heart surgery where I had a triple bypass. So I've been slow going, trying to get myself back together. I was listening to the topics, and I was like, when I got invited up, I said, I know y'all were talking about movies at the time. I said, I hope that's not the only topic we're talking about. But as y'all were talking, I was thinking about, the different movies, like, Fast and the Furious. I was like, at one time, I was like, how many of these they gonna make? But I actually took a chance and watched the last one, and it was, pretty good, to me. You know what I'm saying? So I said, okay, maybe, it depends on the franchise and, if they're making money, whatever like that, how many more sequels they kick out. I think they're supposed to be doing 3 more. So I don't know if people will ever get tired of that or they'll just ride it out to the end. But I actually didn't know if y'all were talking about podcasting today or not, or anything. If you're not, I can always hold that for another time. But
for sure, it's the subject is open. It's whatever you got. You got a question, you got a tip, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I just wanted to report to y'all that I appreciate all the help you guys have given me. I see my buddy Billy on stage too, and I've been wrestling with podcasting for a while. Got started on one for a minute, got imposter syndrome, and quit doing it because I didn't think nobody wanted to hear me. Blah blah blah. Y'all know how that goes. And then I actually started another one with a friend of mine as a co-host, and we've already finished our first season. So I just want to report back to y'all that I really appreciate y'all and all the encouragement. You know what I'm saying, to keep going. And I actually have a lot more. It's a health podcast, and basically I share my story of my remission of diabetes on on the show, which was a great thing. And now I can have another story later on about this open heart surgery. Can add to the stories as well. But we've been having guests on talk about health related topics and different doctors and different health enthusiasts and things like that. It's been going pretty good. So we're already going into our second season. But what I wanted to ask is, my partner wanted to do YouTube as well with it. And I just want to ask you, how hard is that going to be to try to do both of those? I was telling her, when your audio, and we're on I'm using StreamYard. So we're using StreamYard, but I'm recording audio, and we can give each other cues if somebody wants to step in and jump in with the person we're interviewing and stuff like that. And I was telling her with video, it's like you got to be right, because if you don't have a take 2 and a take 3, especially if you're doing YouTube, unless you're going to do a whole lot of editing. So I wanted to know how hard is that going to be to pull off that.
Oh, I see Johnny itching. Go ahead.
Yeah, Johnny. So because this is what I do, Triple J. My podcast is a cast first, and it's downloaded as an audio podcast. And to just give you guys an idea, it's, ranked top 10% globally. We just hit number 51 on the Apple podcast charts. So here's the thing. You definitely need to be on YouTube. You have to be on YouTube. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. And if you're not there, you are restricting your exposure to a massive audience. Now, you don't have to do video to be on YouTube. Earlier this year, YouTube released YouTube Podcast. You can take your static image, your audio file, upload it into a podcast playlist on your YouTube channel, and it will be distributed to YouTube Music as a podcast. And the studies show that close to 90% of podcast consumers are actually consuming them through YouTube. Now, that's a debatable stat, and we have debated it in the Podcast Pros room. Who's determining the accuracy of that? But that was, a recent survey. So if you're not on YouTube, then you're missing a potential huge market. And you don't have to do video, but even if you do video, and you use StreamYard is already recording it. Just treat it like a live, do it as a live stream show. Treat it live, and then edit the audio later, and make it interactive with your audience. Do it as a live stream through StreamYard on YouTube, and then you can edit the audio later and reissue it, repurpose it as that audio version, and reload it to the YouTube podcasts directory. So there you go.
Okay.
Do it.
So,
take the jump. Take the leap of faith. Because I produced those 2 shows on 5
I think what it was. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I think what it was when she first told me about it, I thought I had to be perfect to be on video. And I know you guys were saying just go live and just do it, and you can just edit the audio later. And I think that's what it was. I was kind of standoffish about it because I was like, I didn't want to mess up. You wanted to run smooth like a real show or whatever. But I guess when you're live, you're live. So whatever goes, right? So yeah, I'm gonna take that leap of faith. Yeah.
I think
do it big time.
I'm going to give you the same advice I've given in this room tons of times before. I've actually had to give this advice to myself because it has held me back from producing content myself and putting myself on camera. But it is 2 things. One, like when in doubt, just hit record, like start filming. Something is always better than nothing. I think Johnny was right. Treat it like it's live, right? Be authentically you. Own those mistakes, right? We do this room live. We're broadcasting live all over the internet right now. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Twitch. We're on LinkedIn, right? We do this every week, and I'm live on camera for like an hour and a half to 2 hours every week on this live stream. I'm eating a banana because I'm hungry, right? And it's in the morning. Usually I hop on this right after I finished a workout. So like I want to get some food in me. So I'm like eating a banana. I'm drinking coffee. I'm drinking water. Sometimes I cough. Sometimes I sneeze. Sometimes I got to blow my nose. And I'm live. There's no getting away from it. So I just do it. And the reason why I do it and the reason why I'm confident doing it is because it shows that I'm not perfect, right? And when people see that I am not perfect, they can relate to me. They can identify with me. They see me as a human being like them, right? Who gets hungry in the mornings and maybe has a banana sometimes, right? Who needs things to drink, who coughs, who sneezes, who sometimes stumbles over his words. It's totally okay to do, because it gives your audience the opportunity to see you as an imperfect person just like they are, right? And the more they can identify with you, the more they can relate to you, the more authentic you are, the better a chance you have at growing an audience, at building a community around your podcast, and at people coming back over and over and over again, not just to listen to the audio version of the podcast, but then to go and watch part of the video. I've done that. I personally, I'm gonna give you some anecdotal evidence to back up my point here. But I personally, for some podcasts that I listen to that are also in video format, right, that are put out on YouTube, if something funny happens that I feel like I'm not getting the full picture of, right, by virtue of just listening to it, I will go to the YouTube page. I will pull it up so that I can see their faces, right, as whatever happens, and I can get the nuance that I was missing from hearing just the audio, right? So I feel more connected to what happened. I will get more humor out of something, or I get a deeper understanding of something if I can see their face, see them emote, see them express, right, as they're talking about these things. So I say, if you're on StreamYard and it's recording it anyway, really all you have to do, it's not that heavy a lift. If you want, like, I think at a minimum, I don't think you just take the file and just put it on YouTube, right? I think a bare minimum amount of editing, and I'm not saying you don't edit for content, right? You don't take out your stumbles. You don't take out if you have to cough or sneeze or something like that. Like, you don't take any of that stuff out. Don't go through and edit for content. What you do is just create an intro and an outro, right? That you can sort of slap on the top and the tail of the video so that there is something clear to the audience, like, okay, we're starting and now we're ending, right? The same way you probably, for your audio podcast, already have an audio intro and outro built, right? So you create a video version of that, and it could be just the same audio, using the existing audio intro and outro you've already built, and just putting some graphics over it, creating graphics to go over it, rather than being on camera for it, right? So you play that intro outro, where you play the intro, you basically take the live video, slap it in the middle, plot the outro on it with some graphics, and upload, and boom, you're off to the races. It can be a very light lift if you want to make it a light lift. So I think 100% do it. If you're already on camera because you're using StreamYard, and you're recording it because you're using StreamYard, then you should be posting it, right? Like, why deny yourself that potential audience like Johnny was talking about? Don't do it, right? Get on the second biggest search engine in the world. So that's what I think.
Go ahead, Triple J. Were you going to say something? I was going to add.
Oh no, I was just gonna thank him. Go ahead.
Well, just to remind you that more people want to see you win than want to see you fail. So I think sometimes we're concerned about not just what other people will think, but how other people will react to it. But honestly, most people want to see you win. So that's something definitely to keep in mind. And then secondly, you can decide what you want to do with that video later. Like, whether you do it as a video on YouTube where there's an image, a still image, and then the voice underneath, or if you do it as an actual video, you can decide, if you do it as an actual video, that this is something you want as an extra for maybe patrons if you're trying to monetize. And you can actually say, hey, there's video of this for people. For example, if you use Patreon, for our Patreon members, you can see the full video of everything that we're talking about. And all you have to do is subscribe, or for subscribers, because on YouTube, you can also subscribe as well. So I wanted to add that.
Okay.
Hey, Triple J.
Sorry, Johnny.
Hey, Triple J, what I would do today, I would do this today, is if you don't already have a YouTube account, a YouTube channel, create it, set up a podcast playlist and upload all of your audio episodes with just your episode artwork to YouTube today. That's what I would do first, and then go forward from there.
Okay, gotcha. I actually have we made a YouTube channel. We were just, I guess, waiting to go live or whatever, but I can go back and talk to her, and we go ahead and put all those audios, because we got, like I said, and I don't know the number you're supposed to have in the season. We did 8, and we said we'll be done with season 1 and we'll go into season 2. So we did like 8 episodes. I don't know if there's any secret rules to that or not, but
oh, well, that'll be easy. That'll take you all of 20 minutes today.
okay, cool. I'm gonna do that today. Yes, sir.
And to answer that last question about rules to how many episodes per season, the answer to that is nope, no rules. There's no rules. The only rules that ever existed in terms of content production and broadcast content when it came to number of episodes per season all revolved around ad revenue, right? So if you're not creating a podcast to generate ad revenue or generate ad sales, then it's whatever you want it to be. And even if you get to the point, and when you get to the point of monetizing the podcast and bringing on advertisers, right? Still, it's pretty much up to you, right? So whatever you have to sell in terms of sponsorship spots, that's what you have to sell. And if it makes sense to do 8 episodes, then it makes sense to do 8 episodes, right? And the season doesn't have to be 1 season per year. You could have 3 seasons a year. You could do, a season of 8 episodes, and then you move on to another topic, or you move on to another, another space in your general topic area, right? Like, so whatever feels right, whatever makes sense, I say go for it. I think don't feel any sort of obligation to create 13 episodes or 26 episodes, or that was all based on ad sales, and it has nothing to do with what you're trying to do. So whatever makes sense, that's what I think you should do, right? And if you find yourself asking, why are we making more episodes this season, or why are we making this season 22 episodes, if you don't have a good answer for that, then maybe you shouldn't be, right? Like, find a reason why it's 8 episodes, or why it needs to be 12 episodes, right? And if you have a good reason why, then there you go. That's how many episodes it should be. But yeah, so I think that's a good point. And I just wanted to reiterate something Dr. Tachi said there too, is you can think about 100%. And I'm saying this again to reiterate for my friend Chris, who's in the audience. If you're trying to grow audience and bring more people to your Patreon, give them the audio version for free, right, as a podcast, and give them the video on your Patreon, right? So give them something of value, something that they value for free. Lead with value, right? Which you guys have heard me say ad nauseum here. And I'll keep saying it because I 100% believe in it, and I'm not going to stop. You can't stop me. Can't stop, won't stop. But lead with value. Give them something that is valuable to them for free, right? And then put that full video, or the video with a deeper explanation, or that next level of work that you put into the content, put that behind a paywall on Patreon, if that makes sense for your audience, and if that's your business model. That's a great approach to doing it. So I just wanted to reiterate that for Chris. Chris was actually asking me offline about this kind of stuff the other day. So I'm glad it came up sort of naturally in the flow of conversation here, but I think that's a great way to do it. That's a great approach, for sure. But I think you should always be giving away, right? I think you should always be giving more than you're taking, right? So, it makes it a really easy formula. If you've got, say a $10 a month Patreon subscription level, right? If you're giving somebody $100, something they would pay $100 for, right? If you're giving them that for free, then $10 a month is suddenly seems like a really good deal, right? Like, what a bargain if you're giving away $100 worth of information, right, or worth of value to somebody, and then asking them to pay just 10 to get even more, like what a good deal that is, right? What a good value for money that is. It makes that decision to spend that $10 a month really easy, right? So make it easy for them to make that decision. Give them so much value that they go, you know what? I want to give them $10 a month. I want to give this creator $10 a month because they've already given me so much. I want to make sure that they are able to continue doing the work that they're doing, right? I want to give back to them. So you have to give them so much that it will kind of hurt sometimes, right? Like give till it hurts, right? Where you're like, man, not sure that I should be giving all this stuff away for free, right? Like, I think give more, right? And the sort of line that I always use when it comes to giving away like sort of knowledge for free, right? This is my sort of like line of demarcation, right? Is if it's generalized knowledge, right? If I'm applying my experience generally, I will give that away for free all day long, every day, just like I do here, just like I do in discovery calls with people. If I'm taking generalized information and saying, here's an approach to this, here's broadly speaking, generally speaking, what I would suggest doing, like we're talking about right now when it comes to like creating video for your podcast or putting video and building a community through free to drive traffic to Patreon, right? I'll give that away all day long, every day. Where I draw the line and where I start saying, no, you have to pay me for that, is when you are asking me to take my knowledge and experience and specifically apply it to your problem to help you come up with a solution. If I'm specifically applying my knowledge, right, to your problem to help you craft a solution, that's where I draw the line and say, okay, now you got to pay me for that, right? Like now that's work for hire and you have to pay me for that, right? Like that I don't give away for free. But it's like, it's like anything else, like broadly speaking, like, there's tons of people in the trades on like YouTube and have podcasts and stuff. And they talk about like carpentry skills and they talk about plumbing and they talk about electrical work and they talk about all these kinds of things. And they give you away generalized information. But if you want them to come to your house, you're going to have to pay them. Right. And that's kind of the way I think about it, is like, I'll give away general advice. Like, oh, do I need a P-trap under my sink? Right. Yes. You need a P-trap under your sink. Right. That'll tell you all day long. Right. But when I say, okay, exactly how do I install the P-trap, or can you put the P-trap in for me? Like, now you got to pay for me to come to your house and put the P-trap in, right? Like now you got to come and pay, like you got to pay me to show up at your house and do the plumbing, right? And so that's kind of how I think about it. I mean, it's also because I think about what I do more broadly as a craft more than anything else, right? Like I think about it as like carpentry or a trade, right? It's not, I don't think the sort of skill set that I have, like I never would have developed in a classroom, right? The skill set that I have is developed through being in the industry for over 20 years, right? Through putting in that 45,000+ hours of experience, right? Over the course of that career. So yeah, but I just think, at the end of the day, I think Triple J, you should go for it. And I'm going to land there because I just lost my train of thought. I said too much, and too much of a good thing is a bad thing, right? There we go.
Well, thank you, Tom, and I appreciate all of you, Johnny and Dr. Tachi. I appreciate that. And this comes from a long way when I first, started, and everybody was telling me you're doing good, your voice is good, and all this stuff. But I had so much imposter syndrome where I just killed that first podcast that I had, and now I'm here with a co-host doing it, feeling good about it. And now I'm like, well, I want to keep going. Even break off and do my own podcast, solo or something, later on down the line. So.
Triple J, the only people who suffer from imposter syndrome are people who are doing something worthwhile.
Oh wow, you need to text that to me. I like that. That's deep.
I like that too. I think I was just going to say, like, on a personal note, I can relate to what you're talking about, Triple J, because so I, like I said, I've been in production for 22 years. Been fortunate enough in my work in the television industry to have been nominated twice for an Emmy Award, and unfortunately, I didn't win the trophy, but super proud of those nominations nonetheless. I was talking to, this was a few years back. I was talking to somebody in the PR world, somebody who's a friend, and was asking her to sort of take a look at my website and take a look at some of my business stuff and just give me some feedback as I was developing kind of my own brand and my own, hanging out my own shingle. And she came back to me and said, weren't you nominated for an Emmy? And I said, yeah, twice. And she said, why isn't that on your website? Why is that? Why can't I find that anywhere in any of your social media profiles and on your website? Like, why isn't that there? Right. And I think it was because I didn't want to, I didn't win. Right. So I looked at that as, it wasn't worth talking about because I didn't actually win the trophy. Right. And two, it was that notion of like, sort of imposter syndrome, right? That like, well, yes, I guess it's a big deal, but it's not that big a deal. And I don't want people to think that I think too highly of myself and blah, like that, all of that kind of stuff. Like, no, I'm not sort of worthy of putting that out there. And she turned around and literally yelled at me, like not even kidding, like very tough love, was like, Tom, you are a moron. Put that everywhere. Like that should be part of your bio. It should be something that goes up everywhere you go. It should be on all of your social media. It should be on your website. It should be on the front page of your website that your company is led by an Emmy nominated producer, right? Like that should be like, that's the headline. Stop burying the headline. Don't be an idiot, right? She literally called me an idiot. And, I changed my tune. And it has definitely worked out to my advantage, right? And I'm comfortable now talking about it years later, talking about it in a way that I feel is not braggadocious. And I think that was part of my concern, is I didn't want to be braggadocious. But, sometimes you just need a little tough love, and somebody needs to tell you to stop being an idiot and be proud of your accomplishments and have confidence in what you've achieved. So I'll do that for you right now. Have confidence in what you've achieved. Stop worrying about whether or not you're worthy of people listening to you. If you've got something to say, people will listen. And I think they should listen to you. So there you go. Go put it on YouTube.
Absolutely. Can I add to that? If you don't say something, who will? And I got this because when I was a full-time professor, I was watching, everybody was saying, oh, I've done this, this, and this. And obviously your CV lists all of those things. But my thing was like, well, I don't have to wear it on my sleeve because I know in here what I've done. I know internally. And then the division director was the similar thing. Well, why didn't you put this in there? I said, because I know what I've done. I don't have to tell them other people what they, and she was like, well, other people don't know. And if you don't say something, they won't know. That's part of your credibility. So just like Tom said, it doesn't have to be in a braggadocious way. It's factual, right? I think also so many of us have been taught that humility is the only way, and that boastfulness is sinful, right? If it's a religious thing for you. So we've been taught not to do that. And so we're sometimes overly humble to our own detriment. And that being humble sometimes is different from being unsure or having the imposter syndrome, but sometimes it's part of that humility. So get unhumble, I would say. Still recognize and be thankful, but get unhumble, and then nobody is going to know if you don't say something, and it's okay.
Agreed. Get unhumble. I like that. It's not dissimilar to the thing I say all the time, like get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Like I'm on camera for hours every week I am always self-conscious when I'm on camera. There is not a time that I'm on camera that I am not self-conscious about being on camera. I've just done it so much that I'm comfortable being on camera and having that self-consciousness. I'm comfortable with it. I'm used to it. I've habituated to it. I recognize it. I know what that feeling is, and I know how to deal with it. So it doesn't bother me, right? But that took time, right? When I first started doing live streams, when I first started making my vlogs, like when I first started doing all these things, it was a challenge for me. So it's less of a challenge now, but only because I've habituated myself to it. I think, Dr. Tachi, I think we're at the point here where we're supposed to do the show and tell. And actually, do you have something?
I do, but maybe we both have something.
I think we both do. So let's do both of ours. You go first.
Okay.
You go first, and then I'll go.
Okay, so I do a lot of live selling. For those of you who don't know, I'm also a reseller on Poshmark. And my thing was like, whenever somebody buys something, you kind of want to reward them and make a big deal out of it. So I was like, I was saying one day, I was like, you know what, guys, one day I'm going to get a bell, because I actually do have like a hookup from my phone. But then I said, you know what? Who needs a bell when you have this? And you can celebrate people. I always celebrate people using this. For those of you who can't see it, it is a shekere. It is a gourd. This is from, I think this one is from Guinea. And it's a gourd that is covered with cowrie shells, a dried gourd covered with cowrie shells. And it's a musical instrument as well as a call to action and all of those things. So I have a habit of, whenever I'm live, doing live selling, and somebody buys something, I celebrate them. And I always say, let's celebrate. And I shake it up. So that's also to say, celebrate folks, celebrate people, shake-a-ray it up for them. So this is my show and tell today, a shake-a-ray.
I love that. That's very cool. That's very cool. I've never heard of, I think I've seen that kind of instrument before, but I never knew the term for it. So I love that. You learn something new, a shake-a-ray.
Yeah, different people call it different things, but I think in Guinea they call it shekere. So that is what they call it.
Very cool. I like it. So I have I'm going to change course for my show and tell. I was going to show something else, but something you said, Dr. Tachi, earlier made me change my mind on what I was going to share. So you were talking about how people want to root for other people to succeed, right? And so I happened to have this on my desk, and literally it was like buried under a couple of things on the side of my desk, and it's just because I hadn't put it away yet. So this, for those of you who are just listening who can't see, this is my medal from the last Ironman I did last August up in Mont-Tremblant in Quebec, Canada. This is the finisher medal from that race, from that Ironman race. For those of you who are unfamiliar with an Ironman race, it is a triathlon, so it's 3 separate events. It is a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike, and a 26.2 mile run, totaling 140.6 miles. So when you see a sticker on somebody's car and it says 140.6, that's what the 140.6 means. So it's 140.6 miles, and you do it all under your own power, swim, bike, run, in that order. And I wanted to mention this and talk about this one now because it gives me the opportunity to share a quick story with everybody. So for everybody who followed my vlog last year, who's known me for a while, you know that I broke my collarbone last April, had to have surgery to repair it, kept up with my training anyway, even though for a while I was reduced to just walking because it was all I could do, with my arm in a sling, recovering from surgery, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually ended up completing my Ironman race in August, probably despite my doctor's wishes. Although he did clear me to do the race. He thought I was a nut for wanting to do it. At the end of the day, I did it, and I did it faster than I did my first one. and I hit my goal, achieved my goal of finishing in under 12 hours, about 20 minutes faster than the first Ironman I did. And that was after recovering from breaking my collarbone. And I do some public speaking, and I had a couple of speaking events last year between when I broke my collarbone and when I did this race. And at each of those events, I decided to use my story as an example to introduce people to the hero's journey, right? The sort of the monomyth, so to speak, or as it's described, the monomyth, the hero's journey. And so what I did was I basically said, however many days ago, this is what happened. I broke my collarbone into 4 pieces because I don't do anything halfway. I broke it into 4 pieces. I had to have surgery, a plate, 7 screws put in to put it back together. And I am still training for my Ironman. And then I would ask the room a question. I would ask the room, how many of you, by show of hands, raise your hand, how many of you are rooting for me to complete this Ironman in August? And invariably, every single room in the hand would go, like every single room in the hand, hello, every single hand in the room, you know what I meant. Every single hand in the room would go up, right? Every single one. And then I would ask them, and then the next slide I would go to just said, thank you for your support. And when I went to that slide, I would say to the audience, now, do you know how I knew that all of you were going to raise your hands? And they would kind of go, well, that's human nature, and I would say, yes, but it's because it's an example of a hero's journey, and we all love to root for the hero to succeed, right? It is innate. We cannot help ourselves. So I think to Dr. Tachi's point, you know, the more authentic you can be, the more you can show yourself, right, as someone that your audience should be rooting for, they will root for you, right? Give them the opportunity to root for you, and they will. 100% of them, probably not, right? And especially not on the internet, because it's easy to be a jerk online, right? But by and large, the vast majority will root for you if you give them the opportunity to do so, right? And that's exactly what I was doing with that audience. That's the point I was trying to illustrate with them when I would share that story. And so that's what I wanted to, that's why I chose this medal that happened to still be sitting on my desk today when Dr. Tachi said, when Dr. Tachi was talking about people wanting to root for someone to succeed, it's 100% true. It is innate. We cannot help ourselves. We always want to root for someone to succeed. So give them someone to root for, right? If you get the chance, do an Ironman. It's a fun challenge.
I love that story, and I love that medal. That medal is like premium metal. I love that.
Yeah, it's not light, and like when they put it on you at the end of the race, you really feel the weight. It is not small. It is not light. It's pretty cool, I think. Get it to focus there. Come on, there it is.
Yeah, no, that's
close
awesome.
up of it.
Wow. Now I have a question. Do they do our Ironmans in different cities, or is it one Ironman competition that travels around?
So Ironman is simultaneously 2 things. Ironman is a brand, right? It's a company, it's a business, but it's also synonymous with a particular race distance, right? So an Ironman is 140.6, a half Ironman is 70.3, right? Where literally all the distances are just halved from the 140.6. So it's a distance. And that's how it started. And then that sort of that distance, that race, eventually ended up becoming a brand. So there are Ironman races all over the world, Ironman branded races all over the world, but there are also other triathlons of the same distance that aren't called Ironman races because it's now a trademark brand, right? But there's a famous race in the triathlon world called Challenge Roth, which takes place in Germany every year, which is a big, big, big race. And it's an Ironman distance race. But yeah, there's a bunch of Ironman races all over the world. So it's not just one place. In fact, the Ironman that I'm doing this year is going to be in September, and that's going to be back down in Maryland. That's the second time I'm doing. That was the first one I did. So this is my third. This will be my third Ironman, and the second time I'm doing Ironman Maryland. So yeah.
Congratulations. That is fantastic.
Thanks. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, and I
It's
own
crazy, but fantastic. And it looks like we have Jason, Mr. 72, back, and I know we're getting ready to wrap time, but I'm not sure if there's anything you wanted to add. We talked about a lot today, didn't we, Tom? We talked about. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we did. We talked about Barbie. We talked about Oppenheimer. We talked about Barbenheimer. We talked about all kinds of. We talked about content production. We talked about creating a video version of a podcast. We talked about the film industry more broadly. We talked about what the Barbenheimer phenomenon means for the future of production. We talked about all kinds of stuff. So any of those things.
I caught. Yeah, I caught the beginnings when you guys were talking about Oppenheimer and Barbie, and the one thing that because there's a writer and producer and an actor strike. One thing I'll say is like the business bets on the repetition, and it's not. I'm glad this strike is going on because now it creates a whole plethora of avenues for independent creation without major corporate support. And it gives a lot of creators like ourselves an opportunity to shine, because where people don't want to pay attention at the box office, they're going to pay attention to Rumble, YouTube, other places, which they already do. And that kind of just hurts the industry. And I think the industry kind of betted on it, and they knew it was going to happen. There's signs that it was going to happen. But at the end of the day, you know what? I'm not a big shot. I'm not the shot caller. I keep my reactions in, and I just observe and I see. And now it's like, okay, well, I just got done recording my own podcast, my own house, and I talked about work-life balance. Do you let your work take away from your quality of life? And for a lot of these writers, matter of fact, the other day we were talking on The Big Idea about, one person who works with Hollywood. He's like, now that I don't have a project to work on, what do I do? And the obstacle is the way. Like, do you ever think about taking all those talents now working on an independent project you could do without worrying about funding? And it kind of opened his eyes up. And that's the thing. I think that's what we have to realize. Like, to me, I have 3 daughters. They've all been raised and had Barbies at one point in time, but only one of them has any kind of interest to watch the Barbie movie. And I don't know if I have the wherewithal to dad to be like, I'm going to go spend, I don't know, $60 to go to the theater to watch it. I mean, I've heard about it, but I'm like, I'll just wait for straight to stream. I'm like, safer, cheaper, better. I can wait. But Oppenheimer has interested me because it reports on some history. So thanks for your time. I know I came at the end, but I wanted to come back in if I had time after my show. So thanks for hearing me out.
Thanks for being here, Jason. Always a pleasure to have you. Dr. Tachi, do you have something you wanted to add to that?
No, I just agree. There's not much to add. He dropped the mic on that one. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's it's interesting. We were talking about like sort of the impact of, and Jason just brought it up again, the impact of the SAG-AFTRA WGA strikes on which hasn't happened. They haven't happened concurrently in 60 years, right? Where both unions were on strike, and they've got support from IATSE. They've got support from Teamsters. Who are not crossing the picket lines in solidarity to support the SAG-AFTRA WGA strikes. What's really interesting is SAG-AFTRA and I applaud this 100% in a big middle finger to the large studios is I think as of now, and this number may have changed slightly in the last few days, but as of a few days ago had approved and reached an agreement with 39 independent productions to either continue or start production during the strike with the approval of SAG-AFTRA and the WGA. And I think that's awesome. I'm so glad that they're doing that, because it's a great way to show the big studios that they, it's one of those things. It's that classic management mistake, right? Where in this case, right, the big studios are management, and SAG-AFTRA and the WGA are labor. It's that classic management mistake where management believes that labor needs them, right, more than they need labor, when the opposite is always true, right? And I think this is a great way to just reinforce that point to the management, right, to the studios, that they need labor way more than labor needs them. That labor will find a way to do the work. They will find a way to create projects, to continue filming, and I hope that this, one of the byproducts of this these events, is a reinvigoration of the independent film industry. And I'm hoping that somebody heard me last week when I said, if you are a big business, I mean a business with a 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure marketing budget, maybe even a 10-figure marketing budget, if you're one of those businesses, then what you should be doing right now is investing in independent film productions, or independent productions, period, right? It doesn't have to be film, could be series productions, etc. But I think you should be investing in those. And I think you should shout about your investment from the rooftops, right? Let everyone know that you are supporting bringing audiences what they want to see, right? And that you are doing it in support of labor. And I promise you, you will get a ton of positive response as a result of it. I just think it's such a huge opportunity, and it's going to continue to be an opportunity for months, if not years. I think we're going to end up seeing a 6-month to 12-month to 18-month lag in production from big studios because of this strike. There are some thoughts that this strike, because the management, again, like making that classic mistake, it seems to be that their approach is to try to wait out labor. We've seen some of these quotes of them saying, well, we're just going to wait until they can't make their mortgage payments, or they can't make their rent payments, and then they'll come back to the table, and then we'll get what we want, right? Coming from the studio side. And so I think that we're going to end up with a huge cavern or chasm between where the level of production was and where it's going to ultimately end up. And in that chasm, there is a ton of opportunity in that space between where big studios left off, and right now they're shelving projects, like we talked about He-Man earlier. They're shelving projects to try to take those take those losses on the books, and maintain revenue streams and maintain profitability for their shareholders and their investors. But that's going to work in the near term and not in the long term. So in that gulf, there's going to be a ton of opportunity for independent producers to make all kinds of valuable entertainment and other content, for audiences and for the general public to enjoy. So yeah, Dr. Tachi, what do you think about that?
Absolutely, 100%. I always say that the future of content is independent, and it's been pointing to this for a very long time, which is why I'm so excited about venues like this, all of the people that are doing podcasts and live streams, because the future is independent. I will say this, though, until we, not just us, but also actors, etc., stop the infatuation with the only way to make money is through the major things, I think that we will continue to have this problem, because what I don't want is for it to go back to business as usual as soon as some type of agreement is reached, because we see that all the time. An agreement is reached, and then it's like, okay, forget independent. Okay, and that's because, in a sense, there is not the respect of independent production by many people. Now, maybe different this time. Maybe this time the tide will turn, the tide will change, whatever the saying is. But I let me not put out there I'm fearful. Let me say, let's hope that people respect independent productions for what they are, see them as salient, and don't just go running back to studios once. This doesn't mean don't go, but I'm saying don't consider them as the end all and be all as people have. And that's on the side of the people in the unions and those of us also outside as consumers, non-union people, etc.
Gotcha. Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree.
I think you're muted, my friend.
Oh. Yep, I was muted on Clubhouse and not on the internet. So anybody watching the live stream got to hear me realize that I was muted as you said it. Anyway, I think you're 100% right. I absolutely agree. I think what I would point people to, and maybe this is a good place to wrap it up for today, unless anybody else has something they want to add in, just give me a flag.
Yeah, go watch your YouTube. Watch Tom and Dom's YouTube. Give them support. Go watch. Add some comments. I watch your guys' stuff. I leave some comments. You can. So if you missed what happened here on Clubhouse, go watch the YouTube. So if you came in late, like myself, I missed probably a lot of the middle. So I'm probably gonna go do that and add some comments and make sure you give Tom and Dom your support on Not the Smartest Guys. I just want to do that for you.
Appreciate that so much, Jason. Thanks so much, and thanks for being here. Thanks for being here every week. Thanks for supporting the show and being a part of this community. We value everybody who's a part of this community, and appreciate you being here and showing up every week. So here we go. I'm going to wrap it up with this, right? This is not the smartest guys in the room. Today, it's not the smartest people in the room. I've been here for the last hour and a half plus with my friend, Dr. Tachi, coming to us despite being in Florida without air conditioning, which is saying something. So as somebody who doesn't enjoy the heat myself, I feel for you. But yeah, so I just want to wrap up with this. Dr. Tachi's talking about hope for the future, that this what we're starting to see kind of shift towards support of independence in content production, in media, in film production continues, and that people don't sort of drop and run back to the studios when an agreement is ultimately reached between SAG-AFTRA and the WGA. And that will happen. I have no doubt that it'll happen. I'm not sure it's going to happen this year, to be perfectly honest. I think this strike is going to last through the end of the year. I think the writing is on the wall, that's likely to be the case, because it's going to take a while for the studios to really feel the pinch. There's a lag, there's a delay, there's a time delay, so to speak, to use a production term, right? The strike is on a time delay, and it's going to take a while for the studios to really feel the pinch. And what they're going to do in the meantime is they're going to push towards cheaper production and production that does not involve SAG-AFTRA or WGA. So what we're going to see is a huge increase in reality style content production and like docu-reality, docu-soap style production. Those are already starting to ramp up, and that ramp up is going to continue to try to fill that gulf. But again, people are going to be inundated with content that they don't really want. They're not going to watch as much of it. Ultimately, it's going to be a short-term stopgap measure that's not really going to fill the gap, and eventually the studios will feel the pinch. But I agree with you, Dr. Tachi. I think this is a hopeful place to be, and if people are doubtful at all that investing in independence and that there's great opportunity to make money, right, to be successful in content production, in media outside of major studios, right, outside of the traditional broadcasters, then all I would say is look at the internet and look at what you watch, right? I bet everybody here has spent a fair amount of time on YouTube, has spent a fair amount of time on different social media platforms, devouring content, right? Devouring productions. There is there's been a massive democratization in content distribution that did not exist even 5 or 10 years ago. There's a quote entire economy right around creators now that did not exist 10 years ago, right? So the proof is in the pudding, so to speak, right? The proof exists all around you in your own behavior. So if you are doubtful that there is money to be made or success to be found in independent content production outside of major studios, right? Major producers. And when I say majors, I'm talking about like Disney, Hulu, Amazon, Netflix, Warner Brothers Discovery, or Discovery Warner Brothers, whatever order that one goes in. Outside of those, there's a ton of opportunity. So look around you, look at what you do on the internet, take note of what you do on the internet, how you consume content, how others consume content that you talk to, and use that as an indication and a well from which to draw hope for the work that we do going forward, promoting, producing, developing, and bringing more independent content to the world. And that's all I got for today. So I think we will leave it there. Dr. Tachi, thank you so much for being here this week. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. You know I love you guys to the moon and back.
Well, and the feeling is very, very mutual. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Always a pleasure to see you and not just hear you in the room. So always nice to have your smile on the other end of my video screen here. Really appreciate it. And until next week, this is Not the Smartest People in the Room. I'm Tom. On behalf of myself and Dr. Tachi, thanks so much for being here. We love you guys, and be back next week, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, everybody have a great week. Love you, and bye-bye now.